I'm gonna show you the one trick that all real Texas pitmasters know, so you can cook at home like a real award-winning pitmaster. Let's go with the Wagyu beef tallow brisket. So now the first thing we have to do with this brisket is we have to trim it up. It does have some good intermuscular fat in there, so you can tell this is gonna be a nice looking brisket, but none of this stuff here is gonna render. So let's get it the hell out of here. I got my Dow Strong boning knife, link in the bio down below. So I think for the most part, we're in pretty good shape here. I think we're gonna leave all that how it is. Now I am gonna leave some of this fat on here, maybe a little more than I normally would. Got a nice little ugly butcher cut right there. That's from the butcher. That sucks, but it's not a competition brisket, so it doesn't really matter. But you know, we do like our briskets to look as good as possible, right? So this fat right here, I feel pretty comfortable that it's gonna render out because it's mostly just sitting on the surface there. And we're gonna cook this brisket for like 20 hours. So I don't really anticipate that being an issue as far as rendering out. I'm gonna season these with the OG rub and the AP rub. Check out that new branding, looking sexy as hell if I do say so myself. Perfect for layering your briskets. We're gonna take some of these big pieces of fat, like look at that, beautiful, right? And we're gonna go ahead and throw them in this little pan over here. And we're gonna throw this in the smoker with our brisket, and purely just to render and create additional tallow. So we're gonna kind of cheat this tallow for the final step. I know we said we're doing Wagyu, and we are. Like I said, just kind of cube this up. That should be plenty right there. So before we get to our final step with this fat right here, we're gonna go ahead and season our brisket. Layer one is gonna be our all-purpose rub. The all-purpose rub has got great salt, pepper notes, as well as a couple other things. It's just really perfect for all meats, but especially beef. And we're just gonna give it a light, even coating. You don't have to go too over the top with it. You just wanna make sure that you hit everything. Get down in any, if you got cut marks or anything like that, go ahead and make sure you get those. Now before we flip it over, we're gonna go ahead now and we're gonna come back with our OG barbecue rub, skullandmortar.com. What this is gonna do is add some deeper, richer pepper notes like the paprika, the cayenne, all of that stuff, the chili powder, which is delicious on beef. And our final step is gonna be, I have one last bottle of the God Save the Queen rub. We're trying to get it back in stock. We know that it's super popular. It just kind of is what it is. We're gonna go ahead and hit that down there. I know you're probably not, as of the time of this video, gonna be able to get this. So I would use some Montreal steak seasoning, will work perfect. That's just gonna create like nice pops of flavor. And we are gonna kind of push that down. Since we're gonna flip our brisket, we do want to kind of push that in just a little bit. And apparently we're still gonna lose 98% of it all over the bottom. JK, it wasn't that much. Everything's gonna be fine, guys. Now we're gonna come back over this bottom part, the fat cap, with our AP seasoning once again. Back over again with our barbecue rub. We're gonna give it a healthier coat this time. We wanna give it a real thick coat on this part here, because we're gonna cook this fat side up. So we wanna make sure that we really get that fat cap. And then last but not least, we're gonna go over it one more time with that God Save the Queen. Again, I would recommend some Montreal steak seasoning or some sort of Windsor style rub. Now we wanna let this macerate for a little bit. What's gonna happen now, the seasoning here, the salt is gonna pull out the moisture and it's gonna really adhere this seasoning to the beef, but we have to allow that to happen. So we're gonna throw it in the refrigerator for just a couple hours. We're gonna let it sit uncovered. Our final step before we get this stuff on the smoker is gonna be to take some of this Wagyu beef tallow. We got this off of Amazon, the link is in the description. And we're just gonna plop some of that down on there so that as this tallow renders out, this Wagyu beef tallow will render in with it and kind of richen it up. Now, we're gonna use this later to drip over our brisket during the rest period. So this is not something that we need to worry about being 100% Wagyu, like we will in future steps. But we're just gonna kind of cheat the Wagyu into this just to get a really good, delicious, flavorful fat drip.
All right, so we got our fat here and we got our brisket here. We got them both on the smoker. You can't really tell because it's humid as hell out here, but it's at just under 200 degrees. So we're gonna leave this here. We're gonna let this cook all night and we're gonna check it first thing in the morning. It will not overcook.
Guys, our brisket is now at an internal temperature of about 170 degrees. So what we wanna do now is we wanna get our butcher paper. We're just gonna slap some Wagyu beef tallow down just like that, just a big ass scoop. We're gonna take our brisket, set it directly on top. Okay, now this is where a lot of people kind of mess up because that extra fat will kind of bland out your brisket a little bit. We don't want that. So we're gonna come back over it with our barbecue rub. And the reason we're gonna do that is because the barbecue rub has the most flavor to it. It has the biggest depth of flavor. So we want to keep that flavor high. So we're going to hit it with one more blast. Now we're going to get this back on the smoker and we're going to continue to let it ride out at extremely low temperature. We're just going to be at 220. Guys, we've had this brisket on the smoker now for 18 hours. It is up to 205 degrees, but we have one more step. Remember when I told you we were going to cheat that Wagyu beef tallow? Well, there it is, my friends. And now we're just gonna pour this right over the top of the paper and just kind of let that soak through to the paper. And that's all we need this extra fat for and this extra tallow for. So I'm gonna get rid of this, but we're gonna let this sit for about 2 hours and then we're finally gonna come back and slice this bad boy and see what the hell is really going on underneath this paper.
So this is where I pretend like I didn't forget to turn the microphone back on and we gently tear this paper open. We showed a little love. We're not too rough with it though, you know what I mean? We gotta treat it with a little bit of respect. Just kidding, go ahead and tear into it. It's just paper, man. Do whatever you're gonna do. Pop this paper open. You can tell it's absolutely soaked with moisture, which is exactly what we wanted. Look at this, we got a beautiful bark on here. It's a beautiful, deep, rich mahogany color, which is exactly how I like my bark. And you can tell the whole thing is literally passing the bend test right now. Let's go ahead and cut into this. Looks like the grain is kind of running this way, so I'm gonna pop on in here. Look at that. God, it smells wonderful. It looks wonderful. Nice even slices. You want them to be about the thickness of a pencil apart as much as possible. I'm using my Dal Strong Omega series knife here. I think they're out of stock, but we do have a link in the description below to the Shogun series. Boom, bend test pass, pops right apart, perfect. Now look at this face. Look at it. That's the face of a man who's eaten a lot of food, especially brisket. Absolute happiness and ecstasy. Going back for a second bite, it's so good, man. The umami flavor is overpowering. The beef, it's just so rich, so delicious. Let's cut it down the middle here and let's see what we got. Guys, I'm not even squeezing, and just look at that. It's just me normally picking it up, and the juice literally just cascades right out of there. Let's cut this in half and see what we're working with. Let's really look at that point. Look at that smoke ring. Look at all that moisture. You can see that we got the fat is deep inside and it's just all rendered out. It's just pouring out. Let's give it a little squeeze there and you can just see it's a literal waterfall. So guys, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave a comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite tips and tricks. Check us out at Skull and Mortar everywhere and skullandmortar.com for all your barbecue merchandise needs. Let's freaking go.